everybody. I'm happy to kickstart this important event of today. This is a side event of the Farmers Major Group at the HLPF at the United Nations. You may know that this is the 10, 12 days of the year in which the high-level political forum of the United Nations is going on in New York. It was on a remote format for the last 2 years. It is going to be at least organized in a hybrid way with very few participation in the United Nations building, but also allowing for some remote and online side events. So this event is organized on that framework by the Farmers Major Group. Thank you very much all for joining us. Let me start with some logistical information. First of all, interpretation is available in French and English. So to access the interpretation, you can go to the interpretation button at the bottom of your page, Zoom page. I also would like to let you know that the session is registered for note-taking, but also for promotion on social media and on UN channels, as well as our organization's channels. Likewise, the event is live streamed in WFO social, so you can also follow that part and participate in a live tweet that is available in WFO Twitter channel. I really would like to welcome all of you. If possible, also ask you to keep your videos open and remain muted while you're not speaking. So the event will be composed of 2 parts. The first part is some political remarks by the 3 organizations who have had the lead on the event. Then there will be panel discussion and some question and answer. So I would like also to invite all of you to place your questions to the speakers. The event is really timely organized when the world is facing very strong crises that are now getting more and more complex. We know that we had the pandemic that affected all of us professionally and personally. We have lived strange periods of social distancing, but also difficulties to access markets and to exchange any kind of goods and products among us. And of course, the farmers were particularly affected by this disruption. Then we always have the climate change that we don't have to forget, because farmers are facing these effects every day at the farm gates. And now there is the conflict in Europe that is bringing again difficulties and challenges, first of all, to the farmers again, who are facing many complex problems, including access to inputs, including challenges in access markets, high price for everyone, including buying the first product. So the session is really an exchange of points and experiences from the farmers and all the other stakeholders that are present in the discussion. And first of all, put on the table the differences that we are all facing, but also the common challenges that we are facing, and trying to find shared solutions that can be applied at global level, but starting from the local experience of the farmers, and above all, starting from the local solutions of the farmers. Farmers live every day these kind of challenges, and they are obliged to find solutions at their own, at the farm gate. So they have solutions, and farmers really want to contribute to expand the solutions and also make them available for more investment and scale up. But without further ado, I would give the floor to Arnold Puech-Delissac. He has just been elected WFO president less than 1 month ago at our General Assembly in Budapest. Arnold, this is also my opportunity to give you my formal and official congratulations for the role. And please, the floor is yours now. You have 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Louisa. Bonjour, mesdames, bonjour, mesdemoiselles, bonjour, messieurs. Le temps que vous caliez bien sur l'interprétation si vous ne me comprenez pas directement dans ma langue. Oui, je suis agriculteur en Normandie, producteur de volailles, de viande bovine et aussi de grandes cultures pour nourrir ces volailles. Le monde est un village, et le monde est un village, c'est une phrase qu'on entend souvent, mais le preuve qu'on est capable de faire cette réunion en ligne avec des gens de tous les continents, c'est bien la preuve que le monde est un village. Deuxièmement, le monde est un village. Voilà, le partage de l'information, tout le monde sait que il y a des crises à tel endroit, qu'il y a des manifestations à tel autre. Voilà, l'information nous prouve que le monde est un village. Le changement climatique, je suis dans une région où le climat est très tempéré, où habituellement on était peu de catastrophes, peu de grandes pluies, peu de grêles. Eh bien, le changement climatique, il touche tout le monde dans le monde est un village. Dernier élément, je voulais partager la crise alimentaire. La crise alimentaire que nous connaissons aujourd'hui est une crise planétaire, même si des endroits sont un peu plus fournis que d'autres. L'augmentation des prix, l'augmentation des coûts de production partout prouve que le monde est un village. Nous subissons une crise alimentaire en termes de prix, en termes de volume et en termes de coûts de production. L'énergie a augmenté, elle a augmenté pour tout le monde. Les fertilisants indispensables dans une partie de l'agriculture ont aussi fortement augmenté. L'emballage. Et le dernier élément, le coût de la main-d'œuvre. Je voulais souligner ce point important. Avec le Covid, partout on manque de main-d'œuvre, partout on prend des précautions sanitaires pour éviter cette maladie, et ça renchérit les coûts de tout le monde. Et puis, il y a moins de gens disponibles puisque les mouvements de population sont quelques fois freinés. Et puis, le dernier élément, avec quand même une partie de l'économie qui arrive à être moins dépendante du Covid, la reprise de l'économie fait qu'il y a un manque d'intrants comme de main-d'œuvre. L'ambition de l'ONU, l'ambition de nous tous pour arriver à atteindre les objectifs de développement durable pour 2030 vont être difficiles à atteindre car nous avons tous pris du retard. Ils étaient déjà très ambitieux, mais ce n'est pas une raison pour ne rien faire. Il faut essayer de rattraper ce retard. Rattraper ce retard en termes de sécurité alimentaire, en termes de valeur de la production alimentaire que nous produisions, en termes d'équilibre des genres. L'égalité homme-femme est une volonté que nous voulons mettre en œuvre avec cet ODD. On n'a pas forcément avancé là-dessus. Et puis, la gestion des ressources naturelles, pour ne citer que ces éléments-là, les éléments de ressources naturelles sont limités. Augmenter la circularité de l'économie et de toutes les économies est un élément important. Et on n'a pas assez avancé là-dessus. Je terminerai par le partage des connaissances, et il y a 4-5 points sur lesquels on doit avancer partout dans le monde et qui doit devenir une règle importante pour les agriculteurs, l'importance des engrais verts. Les cultures sont capables de capter de l'azote de l'air, de capter du carbone en même temps dans nos sols. Et le développement des engrais verts doit être encouragé, soutenu, partagé et compris par tout le monde. On voit encore trop souvent des terres nues. Deuxièmement, la valorisation de tous les effluents, les fumiers d'origine d'élevage, mais aussi les boues de stations urbaines, qui sont un élément fondamental pour arriver à cet équilibre matière. Je terminerai par deux éléments. L'importance du non-labour, quand on le peut, à chaque fois que l'on arrive à ne pas labourer le sol, on laisse du carbone dans le sol et on augmente le taux de carbone à la fin. Et donc, on diminue l'impact du climat sur les cultures. Voilà. Et la dernière des choses, la nécessaire solidarité qui doit exister entre les éleveurs et les cultivateurs. Les échanges paille-fumier sont des choses qui se pratiquent, mais qui ne sont pas assez pratiquées. Et ça doit vraiment qu'il y ait cette dynamique d'échange de pratiques là. Je suis sûr que dans le débat, les intervenants vont citer plein d'autres exemples. Je voulais mettre cela en avant et merci au secrétariat, à l'ensemble des secrétariats et l'ensemble des participants de nous rejoindre. Voilà, bon débat à tous.
Merci beaucoup, Arnold. Thank you very much for your points of remarks and for setting the scene for this discussion. My next speaker is Gabor Figenski. He is Senior Manager of Global Policy in IFOAM, the International Organization of Organic Farming. Gabor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much, Luisa. Just like you mentioned, Luisa, we are in the midst of all sorts of crises. There is COVID, there is climate change. We haven't even mentioned the biodiversity crisis that we are in, which is also hitting hard farmers, particularly when it comes to seed diversity. And now, of course, we also have the implications of the war that we have in Europe. At the same time, our food systems are also in a crisis in many ways. They are broken. We experience that around 1/3 of the food that our farmers produce gets lost. There is excessive meat consumption in Western societies. So a lot of these crises are actually created by us, the society. And even more, we have a lot of subsidies, which also point into this direction. So the Food and Land Use Coalition came up with their report where they identified at least 500 billion US dollars, which are spent on unsustainable farming practices. We here at IFOAM Organics International, the global umbrella for organic farming, strive and advocate for a society and for food systems which are preserving our biodiversity, our soils, our natural assets, and which act against climate change, again, which are in line with climate change mitigation and adaptation. Here in the Farmers Mage Group, I think we should admit that there are something like 500 million smallholder farmers who live under the poverty line right now. So we really have to transform our food systems for our farmers. And we cannot really do this meaningfully without addressing poverty. But like you said, Luisa, and you also said it, Arnold, there are huge opportunities. We can create another 100 million jobs in rural economies while protecting the environment that support these communities, as well as the farmers who then produce sustainably. We can expand the supply of nutritious, healthy food for the global population in a way that halves nutritional deficits and respects planetary boundaries. We just need to redirect this 500 billion US dollars in terms of agricultural subsidies towards sustainable ends. So like if fertilizer prices go up, we need to empower farmers to produce without these and find ways to produce in a sustainable manner. Because at the same time, there's a crisis that we did not talk about, or we tend not to talk about, and that's a crisis of trust. We as a society are very much detached now from agriculture, particularly in the developed part of the world. We are detached from farmers, from farming. We don't really understand their problems. We don't know why and how they make their decisions and how our decisions as consumers influence their lives. So I'm really looking forward to this panel discussion where we will hear from them and about them, how they can cope amidst all these crises. And without further ado, then I would like to now turn to this great panel. Thank you very much.
I think, colleagues, that Louisa has maybe some connection issues. So I will take over until she reconnect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gabor, for your intervention. And now I would like to give the floor to Vali Eider from Society for Equity. Vali, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Julia, and thanks for farmer organization for facilitating and coordinating this very important event. And thanks everyone being here. As everybody and Gabor rightly mentioned, we are right at the corner of severe crisis. It's not just COVID-19, the war, but also the crisis of investment and trade and restrictions by international financial institution. Right there at the corner in Pakistan, where IMF is guiding us for new set of rules for increasing electricity prices or gas prices, for our basic necessities, petrol prices. So it's a combination of crisis we are at. We have also witnessed the corporate capture of resources, rising inequality due to neoliberal policies which benefit only capitalists. We have also seen food insecurity, poverty, loss of livelihood, extreme degradation of land, huge deforestation and biodiversity loss. The COVID pandemic further eroded whatever little progress could be made on the Agenda 2030. And now we come to, as I mentioned, the Russia and Ukraine war. As many of you knows that 20% of the wheat supply of the world comes from Ukraine and Russia. And there is estimates that in the coming years, there will be huge food insecurity and price hike in food commodities. And how the farmers of the world, especially in the marginalized sector, will cope up with this kind of situation. It's really a challenge for us. The recovery seems to be impossible as majority of the countries have witnessed unsustainable mounting sovereign debts and increased illicit financial flows and shrinking ODA and access to trade, thereby losing fiscal and policy space and are struggling for recovery. The enormous trade agreements with previous like ISDS are further bleeding states with impunity. The crisis has induced increased corporatization, hegemonization of natural resources through neoliberal policies, dilution of environmental and social safeguards. Social protection has further weakened and women unpaid care work has increased manifold. A majority of the population of the world is dependent on climate sensitive sectors. Asia Pacific is richest region in biodiversity. However, according to recent projection, 42% of biodiversity in the Southeast Asia may be lost by the end of the century, and at least half of them will be global extinction. East Asia and Pacific and South Asia are the most polluted sub-regions, accounting for 2 million deaths in every year. While the resources are scarce for making a sustainable and resilient comeback from the crisis, increased militarization and overlooming threat of war, many countries are in perpetually militarized state and engage in violation of human rights, rights of indigenous people, rights of farmer, marginalized communities, as well as deploying patriarchy as a political tool. Poverty and inequality, unequal access of trade, shrinking fiscal and policy space have been the systematic barrier. We do have best practices, innovation and solutions in all sectors, including those from the farmers and local communities, women, indigenous people, and forest-dependent population, who through their immense contribution of resistance and resilience practices have built the land. However, the political economy of the capitalism, logic of profit and economic imperialism have never allowed them to take center stage. Unfortunately, government in the global south are going the same way. They want to prosper and pollute the first and pay later. However, we propose, like in our group, we propose development justice as a new development framework and aims to reduce wealth, power, and resource inequality between countries, between rich and poor, and between men and women, which include redistributive justice, economic justice, social justice, environmental justice, and accountability to the people. I thank you very much, Julia, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vali, for your very valuable intervention. I have to apologize as I had problems with connection. Okay, so thank you to the three representatives of our organizations who have set the scene for our panel discussion, providing some political remarks. I'm now having 5 representatives of 4 representing farmers organization, and then Anna Koczynski from FAO, from the United Nations Decade on Family Farming Secretariat. Anna, if this is fine with you, I will give you the floor as last, having our farmers providing their own experience in their own countries. I'm going to have Minette Butters, President of the UK National Farmers Union, Janet Maro, Executive Director of Sustainable Agriculture in Tanzania, Frederick Schulz-Hammann, Political Ecology, Education and Strategic Development Advisor of Farmers Organization of Swabish Hall, and then Rafael Mariano, Chairman Hermenitus Pesa Moment of Philippines. So representatives from different regions of the world sharing experiences of how this big crisis, complex and interlinked crisis is affecting the farming population, and what in your respective countries and organizations you are trying to do to cope with these challenges. So I will give the floor to the 4 farmers representatives, and then Anna to you as to make some remarks on what FAO, but also the decade on family farming is doing to trying to cope with this situation. So, Minette, I'll start with you, asking you to share with us your experience in 3 minutes. You also promoted a strong message, a strong paragraph at WFO General Assembly in Budapest last month, to recall the government's attention on food production while coping with the crisis provoked by the conflict. So do you want to tell us more about what your organization is experiencing on that? Thank you, Minette. The floor is yours.
Luisa, thank you so much, and enormous thanks to the WFO for the opportunity to be here with you today. And forgive me if I'm a little bit out of breath, because we couldn't, the challenges of working in the virtual world, we couldn't connect. And so I literally got here about 60 seconds ago. But we felt very strongly at the General Assembly in Budapest that really the world needed to come together, and the voice of farmers really needed to be heard. And I was delighted that it had unanimous support. So really that was just framing, I think, the discussion of what I want to say now. And, you know, it was farmers of the world launching an urgent appeal to governments and other decision makers to take food production very seriously and avoid measures that will damage food production. And I really think, in light of what David Beasley has been saying recently, and indeed the World Economic Forum, the World Bank, all financial institutions, of the need to keep volume of supply up to fill the gap. And this is something that we're very focused on in engaging with our own government, that we cannot afford any country that has the ability, like the UK does, where we have a temperate climate, we have the ability to produce a lot of indigenous production here. It would be totally immoral of us to be taking unnecessary commodity production off of the world market that we can be producing ourselves, and we all have to play our part. And what we are seeing here in the United Kingdom is, with the skyrocketing costs of fertilizer, primarily linked to gas, but also fuel costs and many other input costs, all rising rapidly. Fertilizer now in the UK is seeing treble-digit inflation. And we are seeing farmers, out of the surveying we're doing, changing how they are managing their cropping production system. So they are looking to use less fertilizer. They are looking to be producing for a feed wheat market, for example. So instead of producing milling wheat, cutting out some of their nitrogen fertilizer costs and producing feed wheat. And what we are saying is, actually, we must focus on incentivizing production, not having any policies or regulations that make life for a farmer more difficult or more costly. So we recognize the need for helping farmers get through this challenge. And I'm conscious when I say this that, you know, my country is incredibly lucky in many ways. When I look at the challenges for other parts of the world with production systems, again, David Beasley had a very stark message for countries in Africa that face, you know, unaffordable costs of fertilizer. So we really do, I think, as farmers, want to create a drumbeat, if you like, up to COP27 that faces into the twin challenge of global warming and global feeding. And we as farmers, I think, across the world, whatever continent we are farming on, we have so many of the solutions that if we can work collectively with our governments, we can find a way through. But we have to deal with that two challenges as one and the same thing, effectively. Louisa, I will pause there.
Minette, thank you very much. Thank you for your point, and also for reminding us that if farmers are united in the world, they are for sure stronger, and their voice can be stronger. Thank you. So I will now give the floor to Janet Maro from Tanzania. Janet, do you want to share your experience on what you are facing these days and how you are coping with it? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I try to also, I'm happy to share the experience from Asia in Tanzania. And I'll say first, I'm speaking from the perspective of farmers who are doing organic agriculture. And I'll say that for us, since our farming system is resilient and also we don't rely on synthetic fertilizers, but I see this with the farmers who are not doing this way of farming, who depend on synthetic fertilizers. And for the case of Tanzania, these are imported. And so the increased prices of the synthetic fertilizers have made it that the fertilizers are very expensive. And even before the increase in fertilizer prices, most farmers could not afford the synthetic fertilizers. And so with this increase, it's even a bigger burden for the farmers. And we say it's a bigger, it needs bigger effort for a farmer to be able to buy these fertilizers. So we see that the farmers are not able to produce well, especially those that relied on the synthetic agro fertilizers. And so I wanted to share some good news, or good news, especially for farmers like us and our network where we do organic farming. And so, yes, we use material that is available within our environments. And here are multiple benefits. I had the mention of adding organic matter into the soil, but also being able to store, to improve the health of the soil. And as you know, the soils in Africa are some of the oldest soils in the world. And with farming, and not if a farmer does not properly practice crop rotation, but also does not add organic matter to the soil, indeed the impact is so significant that the soil gets depleted and the health of the soil declines. And as a result, the performance of crops is also compromised. So we emphasize and we practice this way of farming, which emphasizes and involves working on the soil health, and the health of macro and microorganisms in the soil is assured. And when this is guaranteed, and if you are able to also store moisture in the soil using ways such as making contours or putting terraces on your land, if the land is on a heavy slope, then you're able to guarantee or to increase the probability of being able to grow your crops that are healthy and can reach maturity. And also, one important thing to mention is that the fertilizer industry pushes a lot for people to use fertilizer. And sometimes they think as if it's like a one size that fits all and will work in every environment. And unfortunately, they forget that the reality on the ground for the majority of farmers is that the access to water, for example, for irrigation is not guaranteed. And so the ability to have good performance of the crop is again compromised. And also they say the production or productivity of the land declines after a long period of time due to also exhaustion, as these synthetic fertilizers do not add or build up the soil. They just provide immediate nutrition for the plant to uptake. And so I find this as not sustainable, because it compromises the future. Maybe it works for the short term, but for the future, for the longer term, it is compromised. And so regardless of the prices and all, but if we're talking about the future and being able to feed the growing population, then we should think about a way of farming which can sustain us, but also the future generations, but also assure production and productivity of the fields in the longer run, and not just this quick fix for the short term, and then this having declined soils, poor soils, and not being able to grow crops successfully in the longer run. And as a result, you have land like what we had experienced here, which has to be worked on, and it's only using methods like composting, using green manure and cover crops, using having mulch or covering your soil to preserve moisture, and having a good environment for the soil microorganisms to flourish, that you're able to sustain and ensure that you're able to produce for the longer run and to feed the growing population without compromising your situation, but also since for us, I mentioned that for us, this is, we use material in our environment. And so also these shocks and things really which are out and do not shock a farmer like me, who uses compost in my field, or who does green manure and cover crop, because I don't depend on on this global shock of increasing fertilizer prices. And so I'm still able to produce my crops successfully. And also the issue of environment is very important to mention, that the environment is changing.
Janet.
Okay, can I please just, I'm wrapping up. We have increasing challenges on the environment. And I think it's our responsibility to all take action and do a way of farming which does not further increase the severity of climate change and contribute to production of greenhouse gases, which are detrimental to our environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janet. Really. And we will continue this discussion later. I will now give the floor to Frederick to share his experience and current experience, actually.
Yes. Thank you, Louisa. Thank you, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear attendees and dear organizers, for inviting us. I'm very happy to be here and to speak on behalf of Bäuerliche Erzeugergemeinschaft Schwäbisch Hall in German, which is Farmers Association of Schwäbisch Hall, and its chairman, Rudolf Bühler. Our core message is farmers should unite, have to unite, create grassroots organizations, and create independency on the agro-industrial and food complex and on the industrial food systems. We are a farmers organization of 1,560 farm members, being founded in 1988 only by 8 farmers who committed their farming life, so to say, to save old animal breeds being at the brink of extinction. In our case, it is here the Schwäbisch-Hällisches Landschwein, which is the oldest pig breed in Germany. And my boss came back from development cooperation from the Global South, overtook his farm and realized that this old animal breed, this pig breed, is at the brink of extinction. And 8 farmers saved it and made a business case out of it. So a specific brand could be created. And in the meantime, we grew up to 1,560 farm members. And our concept, our approach is to have everything under one umbrella. So only family farmers and small-scale farmers are members. They are all sovereign. And each farm has one voice in the organization, being led by one chairman. And all are committed to old animal breeds, to old plant varieties, and so on. And we made this business case out of it and have kind of the small value chain in our hand, from the production side to the processing, to the marketing, to the consumption, even including the gastronomy and the market. So we are able to holistically communicate what we have, this old pig breed here in the southern German region of Hohenlohe. And we are kind of well known throughout all Germany through this. And as a strong farmers organization, having their own business case, but not being focused on maximizing, but having a certain economy of temperance, we are still sovereign and are able to preserve farmerly culture, or also the social and cultural traditions being present here in the region. save biodiversity through these old animal breeds, for example, and communicate, bring across that food is a very, very special good, so to say, which has to be appreciated. Yeah, just to give you one example, University of Vienna and an organic institute found out that our pig breed, let's say 1 kilo pig breed of meat, has a 49% less CO2 emission per kilo, as I said, than the industrial pork meat production, due to, it's very particular and peculiar maybe to name it, due to the intestines, among others, of this old pig breed, because the digestion is different, and to using crops and legumes for the feeding of the animals on the one hand, and at the same time using these green fertilizers to keep the soil as a soil being full of quality. So we have different effects, and can say, plausibly say, that we are doing climate friendly, let's say at least climate friendly agriculture, and that meat production not necessarily has to be very, very negative for the climate. So we have, as I said, all these things in one hand. We have our own extension and advisory service for the farmers. 1/3 of us are organic, the others conventional, but those being conventional have to stick to higher standards. So for example, more space in the stable, no soybeans from the rainforest, all our soybeans being fed, and the other legumes and peas are cultivated here on the farms. So we united as an organization, have our own market, our own abattoir, our own gastronomy, and through that, as an NGO, became also part of ECOSOC at the United Nations. So you see, it's both farmerly work, socio-political work, and environmental protection, localizing SDGs, localizing global peasants' rights, climate-friendly agriculture. We say agrarian change, yes, we can. Thank you.
Frederick, thank you very much for sharing your experience. I think that I will make some questions to you later. I'm now giving the floor to Rafael and listen from him, from the Philippines experience. Rafael, I don't see you, but I hope you are still there. I think we missed you.
Thank you very much,
okay,
Luisa.
Here you are.
Okay. Warm greetings of friendship and gratitude from the Peasant Movement of the Philippines, KMP. Here in the Philippines, our primordial goals of food self-reliance and food self-sufficiency are being compromised by the government's policy of food imports dependency and the government's program that promotes high dependence on chemical-based agricultural and food production. This has been the narrative of the Filipino peasants for decades. But the small farmers decisively took part in promoting and practicing agroecological, sustainable farming systems and practices. The pandemic highlighted this effort as communities, both in rural and urban areas, cultivated and asserted the right to adequate food and livelihoods. The pandemic also highlighted the decades-long practices of seed conservation, seed saving, and seed exchange among farmers as an important aspect of their agricultural cooperation. One example of this is the Lupang Ramos community, a farming community south of Manila, and the farmer tillers there have been asserting their right to till the 372 hectares of agricultural land for more than 30 years. And for more than a decade, the organized efforts of Kasama LR, this is a local farmers organizations in the community, develop a practice of agroecological based collective land cultivation, what we call Bungkalan or land cultivation campaign, which serves as a farmers' school wherein trainings and education programs for farmers are held. During the pandemic, while most communities had difficulty accessing food, Lupang Ramos families said their food supply was sufficient and they even set up their own community pantry of neighboring communities. Aside from the nutrition of their organically grown produce, their herbal gardens became very useful when COVID-19 hit their community. For us, Lupang Ramos is an example of how farmers uphold people's food sovereignty and promote agroecological sustainable agriculture system of practices towards genuinely food secure communities. It is very important to preserve and protect agricultural lands, primarily those devoted to or suitable to production of staple food. So we remain hopeful that Filipino peasants and farmers will continue asserting their legitimate and fundamental rights to food even amid this state-perpetrated extrajudicial attacks and human rights violation. So KMP continues to advocate for policies that support genuine agrarian reform. This is a thoroughgoing and truly distributed program based on the principle of social justice. Very recently, we joined the filing of the proposed Rice Industry Development Act to increase agricultural and food production to achieve food self-sufficiency and stable and sustainable food security in the country. And yesterday, we also joined in the filing of the proposed Genuine Agrarian Reform Act for a pre-land distribution program for the landless Filipino peasants. We have to uphold people's food sovereignty and continually promote and practice agroecological and sustainable farming systems and practices. We have to build a just, equitable, healthy, and sustainable food systems for a food secure peoples of the world. Thank you very much.
Rafael, thank you very much, really, for sharing your experience, and congratulations on the initiative. So I would like now to give the floor to Anna from the Secretariat of the Decade on Family Farming and FAO. Anna, I would really welcome some reflections on your side after having listened to the farmers' representatives and what the diverse challenges are, but sometimes also very, very similar, and what the solutions the farmers are looking for. How do you think the Decade on Family Farming can support the family farming community in these new challenges that we have? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Luisa, and warm greetings from Rome to everyone. It's really a pleasure to be part of this important side event and to deliver to you some thoughts on behalf of the UN Decade of Family Farming Secretariat. So let me start, Luisa, by some data because I come from FAO, so I have to mention some statistics. So as we know that the number of hungry people in the world are in rise since 2019. And on the top of that, while the pandemic swept the world and halted economic activities and disrupted the supply chains and deepened the poverty, it has also resulted in 811 million people chronically undernourished. Unfortunately, most of those people, 80% of those people actually, live in who are food insecure live in rural areas. So almost most of them are small-scale farmers. So this is a big problem. Beyond the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, we already heard from the previous speakers, the climate crisis is getting more and more problematic. And of course, on the top, the war in Ukraine exacerbates all these economic and social shocks, right? So it creates burdens for the family farmers, so for all of us. So in this context, the problem is clear, no? We are all aware of the problems, but we have also a big opportunity here. In our opinion, multiple crises also offer the occasion to joint and the sincere rethinking, to find the most appropriate solution and strengthen resilience and local food production, as the members of this panel demonstrated. I think we all agree the important role of family farmers in this context. They are key to ensure food security and nutrition. And in fact, their important role during the pandemic, by providing the contextualized and comprehensive solutions, was many times proven. As Jeanette and Raphael already mentioned, we have witnessed emerging alternatives, local and food distribution initiatives that were emerging and that were established by family farmers and their organizations and cooperatives, which indeed redirected the attention from the global food supply chains to the importance of the local producers. There were a number of new initiatives, innovative ideas, new forms of organizations, to connect the producer to the consumer, and bringing, in fact, closer the rural and urban areas. And then I want to also mention what Frederick just before highlighted. The family farmers are not only just the food producers, they are the caretakers of the environment and of the incredible diversity that actually we have in the world. They also prevent the soil depletion and the water pollution. So it's when we talk about family farmers, it's an incredible rich and multidimensional thing, right? So when we talk about family farming, we also need to think about their organizations. And I think it's a very important lessons learned already for us that that we need to strengthen and support well-functioning family farmer organizations, right? So in that sense, I really thank to the World Farmer Organization for this invitation, and of course, their work by bringing together farmers and promoting the collaboration between farmers themselves. Let me conclude for now with just a note. Today, the 2022 edition of the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World, what we call in FAO SOFI, will be launched, just in a couple of hours. And in fact, it is a really interesting and an extraordinary opportunity that this SOFI report also puts in the focus policies and investment this time. And in fact, here we have a very strong link to the UN Decade of Family Farming, the UN Decade of Family Farming that promotes policies, regulation, and programs which support the family farmers themselves. But here in the SOFI, the SOFI will call attention on the needs, and the assessment and on the need of policies and this investment which really support action, which are cost-effective and which promote healthy diet, sustainability, and inclusivity. So in fact, maybe I can come back on this one later on, but for sure, I think there is nothing more strong than the SOFI when it tells, well, we need policies, we need to review our policies and programs and actions when we are now trying to reconsider our agri-food systems given the current crisis. Back to you, Luisa.
Thank you very much, Anna. Really, I'm very grateful for your points. And actually, when we were allocated the time for this side event, I was kind of upset because it was only a couple of hours before the launch of SOFI that we are all waiting for. And maybe it would have been better to know a little bit in advance on what the SOFI is going to release, to also discuss among us on those data. For those who don't know, the SOFI is a report produced by FAO, IFAD, WHO, and WFP. It really gives data and provide pictures in real time on the status of food security and nutrition in the world. And it's also the report on which all the other stakeholder organizations rely for this information. So it will be very important for us to know what it would be said, but thank you very much, Anna, for providing some first insight on that. And actually, if you want, I can also keep the floor to you for another couple of minutes. If you want to say a little bit more on that, I know that it's still embargoed, but maybe you want to share some further information with our participants and our farmers, everything that can be useful for them. I give the floor back to you now.
Yes, Luisa, thank you very much. The point is, as you said, the other content are embargoed until the launch of the event, so launch of the report. So I unfortunately, I'm not in position to share more.
That's good, Anna. We are all waiting for that and see how we can be affected. But it's really important what you mentioned, that actually hunger rates are rising since 2019, which was actually also before the pandemic. And before, of course, the conflict. So I think that all of us should also make some reflections on where the world is going and how we are collaborating among ourselves for in this case, for really having sustainable food systems. And so given this, let's say, given the messages that were raised in the discussion, I will now open the floor for questions to those of you who may have questions for the speakers. Please just raise your hands or write the question in the chat box. Meanwhile, I will give the floor back to the speakers for more insights on their experience on the crisis that we are living. And I would like actually to give the floor to Janet and soon after to Frederick, because you mentioned very similar approaches. Janet mentioned the organic use of fertilizers that can prevent the farmers also to be affected by this crisis that is exacerbated by a difficulty for the farmers to access normal fertilizer. But my question for you, Janet, is, of course, you mentioned, and I'm very, very much in agreement with you, you also mentioned that one size fits all solution doesn't work. Because this is a solution that you can apply in your context, in your country, as you have access to organic fertilizers and manure. But what's your idea about how we can escalate this kind of practices, coping with the diversity that composes the farmers' community? So if this is true and possible in your context, do you think it can be also possible in other places of the world? I don't see. Are you there, Janet? Oh.
Yes, I am here. And so thank you very much, Lisa, for the question. And I'm this type of person who, when I go to places, when I pass around, you know, I see all the plants, all the biomass, I see all the, you know, all the amazing things that really nature is providing. And yes, again, it's not a one size fits all. And there are different plants and different animals in different parts of the world. So it's looking really at your environment and nature, and learning to work with nature and the environment around your area, because every environment is different and unique, and there are opportunities as well as challenges in the different areas and contexts. And the most important thing is soil health really should be the priority. And when we talk also about plant nutrition, we should see plant nutrition as a whole, and not just thinking plant nutrition is providing a few nutritional elements, like, for example, nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium, but rather the whole macro and micronutrients that plants need to be able to grow successfully, to be healthy and produce, to be strong and also resistant to pests and diseases. Because I believe when a plant is healthy and has the right nutrition, also the ability of the plant to resist pest attack and get sick is higher. It's like us human beings, when your immune system, when your nutrition is compromised, you also get easily sick. So it's the same with plants. And so looking really at your environment and what is available, and planning to work with your environment and the nature around you, and in line with nature and not against nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Thank you for your points. And Frederick, actually, my question to you is similar, because you presented your organization, what you have achieved in Germany, and we are very, very glad to know that there are these kind of experiences. But even here, do you think these solutions can be scalable worldwide? And if yes, what is needed to do it, according to you?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question and your interest. I think first and foremost, and this relates to all global contexts, I think the spirit of community and the fascination for a certain environment has to be there. This community nucleus creation building is in the center of everything, and there has to be a certain amount of people being committed. So that's for the very first, the start of everything. At the same time, I have to admit that, of course, the legal standards in Germany as well as in the EU were very advantageous for us. For example, for being able to create such a, what we call in German, wirtschaftlicher Verein, economic association, which is the nucleus structure of the whole farmers association, and having then different sub-branches and divisions. But in the nucleus is this farmers organization, as I said, according to legal standards, with its 1,560 farms. And due to specific German tax law, it is free of income tax. This is a very, very big advantage on the so-called green side. And at the same time, we therefore had to branch up in different divisions. So to a certain degree, I would say it's applicable, at least in the EU, to different countries, maybe not to global backdrops and contexts as such. That would be a bit too superficially put. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Frederick.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much. I see Fred Yoder, you have your hand raised. Please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to get together with the farmers of the world. And I really appreciate all the many different things that have been said so far. I couldn't agree more. I really do believe that we must have a multiple system approach. I think it's really dangerous to just focus on one particular one size fits all. You know, the thing about it is, as we talk about the world's farmers, you know, let's talk about what unites us, and really what unites us, at least in the United States, is productivity and profitability to start with, and that's how you get the farmers' attention. And I'm thrilled that we are all talking about soil health, because that's something that I think that you can integrate in with productivity as well. And it's really important. Technology and innovation is going to need to be a significant part of this. I mean, there's so much research going on right now with biological products to control weeds and control productivity with additional maybe not necessarily synthetic products, but also natural products as well. The plant doesn't realize the difference between a synthetic nutrient or a natural nutrient. So let's focus on when we leave our soils in better shape, then we can rely on our soils to do a lot of the stuff that we were adding before. But that brings us to, we talk a lot about the circular economy. And I think that really resonates with farmers as well, that whatever you used for your productivity, and you can reuse some of the things that we even call waste, to recycle it and go right back into the soil again and make it better. I guess what I'm really saying is we need all tools in the toolbox. So wherever you are with your watershed, your water, your availability of water, your soils, your topography, your drainage, let's concentrate on what unites us. If we have this huge advantage of as farmers of the world to make a difference in climate change, as well as be part of the solution for world hunger and productivity, let's concentrate on what unites us rather than divides us. And I really hope that we can take opportunities like we're having today and find out, and let's work on the things that unite us. I really appreciate all the different speakers, what they said. And I really think we have a chance to really make a difference, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Fred.
You are muted, Lucia.
Sorry, I'm very sorry. I didn't realize that I was muted. I would like to go back to Minette, our first speaker in this panel, because Minette, you mentioned about the big role that NFU, the National Farmers Organization of UK, is doing to advocate with governments not to forget the importance of food production in their policies to cope with all these crises. And you also mentioned very well about the resilience of the farmers that are doing something we have never expected in history, that is reducing the use of fertilizers, for example, because of the challenge in accessing it. But my question to you, given your experience as a farmer and as a president of a national farmers organization, how resilient the farmers can be? I mean, up to what extent can the world expect farmer resiliency be infinite? Or you think at one point we should put some burdens?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think that's the key question. And I think my country has been on a period of change now, rapid change that we never ever sort of predicted, leaving the European Union, the global pandemic that has affected each and every country right across the world, each and every farmer right across the world, has brought a situation whereby people couldn't always buy what they wanted to buy when they wanted to buy it. And now we face the very stark situation of that number, that extraordinary number of 375 million people marching towards starvation. So there is more expected of farmers than ever has been expected before. And we know through the practices of the past, effectively, and the new innovations of the future, to Fred's point, that actually we can really game change how we produce our food. And we offer so many of the solutions to climate change, as well as to how people live their lives, not just with food production, but with fibers and green energy as well. But I think now, the challenge that we face is getting our political representatives to really recognize that and to really come together. And we can see across the world now, there is a level of protectionism, there is a level of profiteering, and there is a level of starvation that has to be dealt with. So malnourishment and overnourishment, if you like, sort of marching stride for stride. So it's an extraordinary situation. And I think the big difference now is we faced into inflationary costs in the past, but not like this one, because if you take 30% of the world's wheat production out, i.e. what Russia and Ukraine together produce, then you have to fill that gap. And as a farmer, I couldn't agree more with what has been said about compostable products, soil health, taking the very, very costly chemical inputs out of our systems. But we shouldn't forget that, 4 billion lives in this world have been dependent on nitrogen fertilizer to increase yield. So the point being, I guess, Louisa, that this is going to be a transition to get to a new world. And if our political partners do not work with us, then we are in grave danger of downsizing the number of farmers and the capability that we have. And really what we want to be doing is sharing best practice, sharing that knowledge transfer across the world. And I really think now the conversations around food production, around bringing farmers into those conversations about how we are going to feed a growing population, how we are going to deal with that twin challenge of global warming and global feeding, that moment is now. That moment has arrived. And will people react and work with us before it is effectively too late? Or will we wait until it is too late? And I worry in my country, and I worry in many other parts in Europe, the Commission, that they are still wedded to a very green agenda that is not prioritizing food production. So your question remains to be answered, but it's why collaboratively we've got to work together.
Thank you very much, Minette. Very, very good points. Thanks. I see Lone Anderson. You have your hands up. Hi, Lone, welcome.
Hi, thank you
Please,
very much.
The floor is yours for a question.
Thank you. And do you hear me? Yes, good. Thank you for all the presentations, very interesting presentations, and I'm very much agree about the soil fruitful, how important it is to make the soil become or are still going to be fruitful. But I think it's if we go up to the helicopter, I do also very much agree with what Minette was saying, and I would like. Also about we talk a lot about local products, and but I think that it's not one size fits all. I think we also have to have a global trade. I think it's very important with trade. I think it's more and more difficult to make any trades decisions or trades. It's very difficult for trading now, getting more and more difficult. But I think it's very important to make many trade negotiations and solutions, because it's also help about the climate, about biodiversity, about a lot of different things all over the world. So I think it's both local production, but also that we are an open world. So we have to do both. But I come from, I didn't tell you, I come from Denmark, and I'm the vice president for the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. And we, of course, also have a lot of challenges also with the government and for the farmers. But we also have good experience to work together with the government and find some solutions, and also with some of the green organizations. Because I think we get we get less and less farmers. And if we don't go together with other and make alliances, maybe with the green NGOs or with some other organizations, and find solutions for all these different challenges, we don't get a say in it. Somebody else will decide it. So I think it's very important that we find solutions together. And I would like to ask you if you have good examples where some of you are in your different countries in this panel have good examples where you make progress to find solutions together, because I think, and we are in a hurry, and I can say only the last thing I'll say, it's about our livestock. The livestock is in a very, very hard pressure. We have to eat more green, more vegetable. I think we have to do both, but we also have to find some solutions about the livestock. Because we need also to eat meat. I think some of us especially in Europe, we can eat much less meat, but there is a lot of challenges. But I think we can do it find solutions together with alliances. So I'd like to see if anybody of you have any examples of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lone. I'm redirecting this question to Anna from the Secretariat of the UN Decade on Family Farming. Anna, we have been working together with other farmers organizations as well on policies on family farming, and we have founded the value where farmers organizations especially work very closely with governments on the policy making side. Maybe you can share some insights on that work, and this is, I think, one of the big achievements of the decade. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, yes. We still have some years to go, but just to start, let me share with the participants, if they don't have any information on that the UN Decade of Family Farming was launched in 2019 in order to dedicate 10 years for public policies and investment which support family farming, all around the world. In fact, in this framework, the idea is to promote policies which consider, which really dedicates and gives the agency for the farmers and farmer organizations, and in fact promotes solutions which are sustainable, context specific, and adaptable, to the given context. And in fact, if you to guide this Decade of Family Farming, a global action plan was developed, and this global action plan, what we call in short actually GAP, it was actually a result of a very wide consultation, and it is built based on 7 different pillars, which are very strongly interconnected, and they bring all different policy areas which can be followed according to the priorities of a specific country or according to the specific actors who we are talking about. And it has its fundamental pillar, which is pillar number 1, which is called, which aims at developing an enabling policy environment for family farming. So in the heart of the decade, indeed, policies is there. And we have been working now for 3 years in collaboration with family farmer organizations and many actors to bring concrete results at national level, And these concrete results can be seen, for instance, by looking at the national action plans that have been so far approved in 10 countries, which are all, these national action plans are frameworks for action for all actors to guide their activities, to guide their collaboration, as the previous comment was highlighting, in order to create public policies and programs for family farming, which are actually effective, will result sustainable agricultural systems. Beside that, we are also looking at single policies, and we are observing how public policies are actually emerging, and more, and given also the pandemic, the context of the COVID pandemic, we have observed that only in the last 3 years, 185 new policies were developed, with a very strong focus on family farmers and the promotion of local food production, And in fact, this was probably something that the COVID context kind of provoked, We needed to react on this need. And what we see in terms of the policy and the work around the policies is that in fact, public policies are developed very often, right, by the state eventually. They are claimed by the farmers. So the agenda is pushed forward by a farmer organization or by social movements in a given country. And then, in fact, if these farmer organizations are successful, they indeed manage to get a new policy and manage to see that there is a new policy document that is approved. But the critical question comes, and this is where we still have to work a lot all together and during the decade and beyond, to implement those policies. And for this implementation, this collaboration that Louisa, you were asking, is essential. And this collaboration is essential because during the implementation phase of the public policy process, we need to find the most appropriate tools, the most appropriate approaches, which can really promote and really support the family farmers and local production in a given context. So in fact, this collaboration is essential when we really would like to see in practice and in like being public policies being operationalized and bringing results for all of us.
Anna, thank you very much for the comprehensive explanation. And actually, the point is always that what we advocate for is that the farmers are engaged from the beginning of the process. It can be a research process, a project, development project, or a policy. But farmers' organizations should work closely with the governments in the design and then also in the implementation. And the implementation should be concurrent with what the farmers' needs and expectations are. So this is the main message that we promote in the Decade on Family Farming, especially now in these times of crisis. Okay, so I see there are 3 hands raised and I only have 7 minutes. So I will dedicate 5 minutes, 1.5 minutes to each of the 3 that I see with the hands raised. Ghansham Siborum, then Kati Partanen, and then Jeanette. And I will keep 1 minute to close. Ghansham, the floor is yours, 1.5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I will say that we have seen in Mauritius, especially because we are a small countries, and the farmers is suffering a lot because of COVID. And also the price with the price of fertilizer goes 3 times. And we notice that the input in farming is very much 3 times has been increased, but the output when we sell, we do not get the value. The price remains the same. It is not have increases. So this is a problem, and farmers are getting much difficult. In Mauritius, the government also, because we import all the fertilizer from outside, and the freight, everything is very expensive. But the government put for organic, many incentive for organic fertilizer and also for agroecological. But we see that our soil is not compatible at the time because it takes time, because we have used chemical fertilizer now to go to organic fertilizer, and it's reduce our products 4 times, 3 times. Any farmers cannot even comply with this organic fertilizer because they are not adapted. The soil is not adapted. But here we see that
thank you, Ghansham.
Yes, we need to have a support of financial to support these farmers. Okay.
Thank you for reminding us about the financial part, which is always an issue, but probably always the most important asset. Kati Partanen, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Louisa, and thank you all the speakers and thank you all the comments. I just wanted to refer to Luna's excellent excellent intervention about making alliances and to cooperate and finding solutions together. This is really crucial. I just wanted to raise an example from Finland. I'm a farmer in Finland, and I'm a member of board in the Finnish Farmers Organization, and also a member of board in the World Farmers Organization now. We in Finland have been building together roadmaps together with research organizations. For example, we already have made a roadmap of climate change. How do we solve these biggest problems, adaptate and mitigate to climate change, and at the same time maintain the same amount of food production. So we as farmers, farmer organization, we set the frame for the research organizations that, okay, we will in future produce food in Finland, but how do we do it in the best way possible to reduce the climate, the greenhouse gases, and how do we adaptate and mitigate? And at the moment, we are building the roadmap about biodiversity. And with the same kind of, we set the frame that we are not giving up the food production, because we will need food. But how do we do it in a most sustainable way? And another thing I wanted to raise here is that we really should not forget farmers, because farmer is the most important factor of production in the farm. So welfare of the farmer and having the positive future perspective is important, and especially the profitability as mentioned before. But thank you so much for a very good discussion.
Thank you very much, Kati, for bringing the experience of Finland as well within this panel today. Jeanette, I give you 1 minute and a half, and then I will close.
Yes, thank you very much, Lisa. And I will build on first, nothing for the farmers without the farmers. And then I wanted to share a bit the farmer-centered research program we implement here at SAT. And this is a research project for research on organic agriculture. As you all know that research on organic agriculture is not first, it receives the least funding or almost no funding at all. And then secondly, research and development in this field, if you look over the last century, and if you look at the amount of money that goes into research, you'll see that research on organic farming systems is very, very small, almost negligible. So with the farmer-centered research program, we make sure that farmers in our network, we have farmer research committees, and they get to be the center of the research, as they are the ones who know the farming environment they're in, they know the problems they experience, and so they work together with the researchers to find joint solutions for sustainable methods of farming that are really conducive for the environment where the farmer is. So they work together. And then also one thing that we forgot to mention in the discussions today, the aspect of eutrophication, and also beyond declining soil fertility, declining soil health, but there is the aspect also of eutrophication and destruction of, we say, water bodies, and having, this growth of plants and substances that should not be growing in lakes or rivers, which is as a result of pollution of some of the things that come from agriculture practices that are not sustainable. So I just wanted to mention that as well, and think globally on how we really can solve the problems of farming and making farming sustainable and friendly for the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeanette. Actually, your final points were very, very useful to the discussion, and I really thank you for raising them, especially the fact that nothing for the farmers without the farmers. For me, this is the first point in common that all farmers of the world have. And despite and beyond the diversity of the farmers' constituency, of the farmers' community, we should really work together on that point. If we work on that point only, I think we can achieve many, many of our tasks. But let me take some time to explain why do we say nothing for the farmers without the farmers? Because the farmers are people and families and communities who take the risk of investment in their own farm. It doesn't matter if they produce livestock, crops, organic farming, or other kind of agricultural business. Farmers are people, they hold the investment and business risks in their own shoulders. They are independent, they want to be profitable, they are ready to support the initiatives on sustainability, but first of all, what they want is to grow up in their own lives as individuals, as families, and as communities. This is really the point that farmers have in common. And this is also why farmers fund farmers organizations that can be local, national, regional, global, doesn't matter. But farmers want to keep their own specificity and their own independence. So they should be represented by their own structures instead of, as sometimes happen, by other kind of structures. So this is another point that I think we can work together, all of us, to maybe start organizing even more and more the farming community around the world to respond to global challenges, because farmers have local solutions, and what we have to do is really to promote these solutions in a way that they become scalable and replicable around the world to cope with global challenges. So with this being said, I really wish to thank all the speakers who have participated in the discussion: Arnold, Gabor, Bali, Minette, Jeanette, Anna, Frederick, and Raphael. I would like to thank the audience for being with us, and sorry for 3 minutes delay. And I want to thank my colleagues in the Secretariat of the World Farmers Organization for having taken care of the organization and preparation of this event. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you soon.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you very, very much all. Take care. So long.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.